Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, Chris. I'm doing well.
For today, I wanted to talk about feelings
I love talking about feelings.
because I
Uh,
know that that's, you know, something that we've been talking about recently in our work.
yeah,
And it's a big topic in the world around us as well. I know that we've been listening to Brené Brown and her podcasts and talking about the importance of being able to express feelings and emote, and
yeah,
how there seems to be so much lack of awareness around the multitude of feelings and healthy ways to express feelings. And I think we can agree as we sit here in early November 2023, the world continues to go quite literally mad
right.
with binary feelings only.
Right.
And whether that's anger or aggression, those might be the only two that we see when we go on our favorite news website or listen to the news or watch the news. And um, and so I want to talk about feelings from
Yeah.
someone who is a pro on the full rainbow of feelings.
Well,
What do you think
and
about that as a
it's
topic?
it's like we didn't talk beforehand and I'm totally surprised, like, um, and I will even add on to that, emotions, feelings, emotions, basically the same thing. And it's funny that you said, like, yeah, are there only two? Because, um, referencing Brene Brown, she, I believe, is probably the one that's done the most research in this area. And I am just a huge fan and follower of Brene Brown's work and her books and her podcasts and all of that. And in particular, the book that she most recently wrote, which is Atlas of the Heart, which really defines, I don't know if it's 87 different emotions, which is mind blowing because most people can only think of three feelings or emotions: happy, sad, or pissed off, which is kind of what you said. At some point, people do feel happy, but it's more so sad, angry, or pissed off,
Mm.
and so, um, I absolutely love this work because a lot of being able to, be at rest or, show up the best that you can possibly show up, which is the work that we want to help people do in coaching and development, is really about awareness, around what you're feeling or the emotions that are, um, within you. And if we can't even label them correctly, like if we can't even like take the time to say, like, am I pissed off or am I irritated? Am I irritated or am I really like, disappointed? So, um, for any viewers that want to dig deeper into that, Atlas of the Heart is a wonderful, almost kind of like, workbook to
Mm.
to to help in understanding that. So, yeah, where do you want to start, Chris? Because as you can see, like
Well, we're
I'm all in. And I'll say one more thing: there is no more leaving your feelings or emotions at the door. Ain't happening. Like, so
what door?
organizations are like,
Yeah, what door? I was
not,
asking. Yeah.
you can't parse that part off of you, like it is just so much of all of us. So we have to get comfortable in this space.
Yeah. So, well, we're going. We're off. Don't worry. There's no further intro required. A few things that what you were just sharing bring to mind, and I think my study of feelings and emotions is not where yours is, and I'm consistently learning from you and the insights that you're garnering from a lot of the great experts. And I think we're sort of
Right.
heralding Brené Brown as as the top leader for us in this regard for both of us. A couple of years ago, I was listening to a podcast, and we'll make sure we get all of this in the show notes, both Atlas of the Heart and the insights from Brené Brown. But also, we'll share this information because right now, going off the top of my head, but there's a very famous coach at Trinity College here, where I am in the Hartford area, and he was a very, very successful squash coach. In fact, he won a remarkable amount of championships and national championships. He's really a legend. And I listened to a podcast that he gave, and he said that he would walk over to one of his players during a match and he would say, "How are you feeling?" And he said, inevitably, they would answer what the score was. And he said, "I'm not asking you what the score is, I'm asking how you're feeling."
Yeah.
And I think it's only in a place where it's an excellent coach and very bright students from Trinity College that could even respond to that in the heat of the moment. And he didn't just want to know the standard three feelings. He really wanted to understand what they
Right.
were feeling so that it would not disrupt or could inspire what they were going to do next in the match. So you
Yeah.
think about what a high level athletics coach that
Right.
was checking in with his players about how are you feeling.
Right.
And so that's an interesting thing that I want to talk about. And I actually have to talk about this now too, is that Indiana basketball legendary coach Bob Knight passed away recently, and is
Hmm.
being heralded for all the things that he was and the champion that he was and the brilliant mind that he was. And I'm sure the caring soul that he was. I did not know the person. But it does demonstrate how coaching, I think, has changed over the decades since I was a young boy and looking up to him as the best coach, the best basketball coach in the world. And I guess I don't have the right to opine on what is right or wrong in that regard. However, you're seeing more coaches that are taking a very different approach to coaching now when they go into a huddle in colleges or in the pros or whatever it is. And it struck me that that truly was an archetype of coaching that
Hmm.
was very, very different, not from just the executive coaching that you and I do, but from what the coaching that we witness on our favorite sports teams. It is more to the players.
Right.
What are you seeing? How are you feeling? Now, I'm
Right.
sure there's a generation of listeners right now who are rolling their eyes or throwing their iPhone out the window because you never ask a player how they're feeling. They're supposed to just do.
Right. But
And
I
so,
mean, you know this. I mean, the sports that you've been involved in, and just I learned from you in that regard. It's just like there's so many leadership practices from really amazing sports coaches that can be paralleled with the leadership coaching that we do. But I mean, it's the same with the training and what we talk about with positive intelligence. You know, just with positive intelligence, we're working on our mental fitness. And that was never taught in school. The only thing that was taught in grade school and up through, continued schooling was about physical fitness. It was never talked about like what is happening up here. The most important, like our brains, what is functioning everything, and I hope that that's changing. I think it's maybe changing, not enough to where it needs to be, but like with the state of where mental health is right now, it is something that needs to be talked about and needs to be developed. And I think coaches, the ones that you're talking about, realize that if you're not getting this figured out up here, the baskets aren't going in.
mm,
Like the ball isn't being thrown, because you got too much happening as far as like thoughts or emotions or whatever going on up here, you got to get this right. And then everything else on the court or on the field will, like, just happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't, I don't feel it can be done anymore by just brute force.
Right, right, right. Well, and I know I shared this with you too, but this is where I think we're seeing all these things string together because as
Hmm.
I relaxed after we had an excellent 3 day session with a client in
Yeah.
our leadership development program last week in Boston, and all kind of the energy and
Yeah.
uh, you know um,
That's fun.
adrenaline adrenaline I think is the better word that we put into that. I was attempting to relax this weekend, and so I tried to find a documentary.
I
And
love how you say attempting to relax.
well, I think that's what I think that's what humans do. So I was like,
It's real.
I think there's this thing called Netflix and chill. Wait, that's the ice cream. So I turned on Netflix, and I love watching documentaries, and I had this documentary on my list to watch for a long time, but it was the Mr. Rogers
Oh yeah.
documentary.
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, and we'll make sure we put we put reference that in the show notes as well. But it was the actual documentary of the public broadcasting Mr. Fred Rogers, who did the
Mhm.
children's show for that many decades, and that I grew up on,
Right.
and I really enjoyed the documentary, and in particular, and you and I talked about this briefly. I'll make sure that I share the specific clip with you.
Yeah.
He was attempting to save PBS from not having funding, so he was
Hmm.
testifying before the U.S. Senate, and he was telling, what would seem to be kind of annoyed and process-based senators about the value of the program that he held every day, or that he produced every day. And he was talking about telling children that feelings are both mentionable and manageable, and that there's this wonderful thing that children can learn that is control. And that
Yeah.
goes to that famous Viktor Frankl quote of being able to make a choice, that the space between stimulus and response. And it's exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Kids can exhibit control when they're angry, and instead of punching something and hurting themselves, or
Right.
punching a hole in the wall, they can choose control. And he has a song about that, and he shares that, and he absolutely melts the senator. And in almost direct from central casting, the senator says, "You've saved public television." He says, "We're going to get it $20 million." And it really looked staged because of, and we can get to Mr. Rogers' sort of grace and gentlemanship at some other, yeah,
Yeah.
at some other episode. But it was wonderful that, and I grew up on Mr. Rogers, and I
Right.
remember singing those songs, and I remember being a little boy and being upset and like hurting myself, hurting my hand when I'm slamming something, and
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers and my father saying, "You have to find a way." I
Yeah.
remember I was a little kid, and my dad said, "You gotta count to 10 when you're so
Yeah.
angry, so you don't do something." But it's the
Yeah.
same thing, and I shared this with you as well. I thought that was just a cute little link between what we're talking about with positive intelligence, managing your emotions, bringing your emotions and feelings to work, and working through it yourself. But I've had to use that clip from Mr. Rogers and the documentary with my own daughters, who
Yeah.
are late
Yeah.
teens, this week, about how you control when the jeans you want aren't out of the dryer, or whatever you're doing, and how
Yeah.
much the world needs that song and that message, that
Yeah.
the kaleidoscope of feelings are both mentionable and manageable. And how
Yeah.
do you control your feelings? So I just gave a
Well,
lot back to you, but
there is an endless amount of triggers out there, and more than ever before because we're always connected, so um you you have to take responsibility and control of your own feelings and emotions, because if you get into this, like, well, ugh, the politics or the TV, whatever, the jeans aren't done. It's like, whether it's the jeans not being done today, or a slow driver tomorrow, or, not being fast enough at the, Culver's drive-through window, there's so many things. So we have to figure out how we, I use this word a lot, like self-regulate.
Mm.
And that's not an easy thing. That's not what we're taught in school.
Mm.
Like, we're taught about physical fitness, but we're not as much taught. I mean, I don't think it's really in the day to day, like a class yet, even for my children, so about the mental fitness and how to do that. And it is a thing. Like, it is a practice. It's a ritual. Um,
So, Amanda, to that point, because I think you're someone that not only has spent a lot of time studying this, but practicing it, if
mhm,
you could share, what are some of your daily practices that help you regulate? And I think it's something that has become a routine for you,
mhm.
and it's taken you probably from a self-regulation perspective at a point where you might not even recognize how annoyed you may have been before that person dared, send back that coffee through the drive-through line because you're supposed to take it and go, and
Right.
whatever the challenge was. But what are
Yeah,
some of
and
the
I'm
things
someone
that
that, like, I'm all about, like, it is going to take me 10 minutes to get through this car wash, and oh my goodness, the person took 2 minutes to get out here to even, like, get me checked off, and not, so I have really had to, because of my saboteuring, thoughts, I've really had to, like, practice this. But I would say there's kind of two sides of it. The one is building up the self-awareness, building up the awareness about what is when you get fiery, when you get those hot emotions, and whatever those are, if it's irritation, and being able to label it more than just like sad or pissed off, So, like, am I irritated? Am I frustrated? Am I in judgment about myself or others? Like, what is it? So that's
mm,
the one side, is the awareness of it, and just even realizing that I'm in some sort of negative or hot emotion. Yeah.
well, if I could just hopefully you got that
Yeah. And
other
then there's the
side.
other side, right?
Okay, but for this side, it's a really wonderful point, and I really want our the folks listening and seeing the podcast to think about this, because the more that I have recognized the nuances within my own feelings, it's been so valuable. We've been on this entrepreneurship journey now for you for several years, for
Yeah.
me now for more than a year, and there's a lot
Hmm.
of new feelings I'm having. No,
Because
but
it's just
really,
you, right? Yeah, you're like
and
talking to yourself and, like, trying to manage everything.
right, just I keep looking for my boss, and my boss just is not around, and so, but really, like, thinking to myself, because there is wonderful value to sort of the system to rail against, and when there is no system, it requires kind of an immediate that arrow comes right back to me. And what I'll tell you is that,
Right.
so what I've been realizing more recently, as we've had these conversations, as we coach,
Mhm.
as we work, is that many of my feelings are concern about my ignorance, or
Mm.
sadness or frustration about my own ignorance, where I don't know a certain thing, whether that's a financial process, whether that's a certain sales process, or a tax
Right.
process, or whatever it
Interesting.
is.
Yeah.
And in labeling that, saying, wait a minute, what I'm really just upset about is that I'm not educated on this.
Right.
And then when I can turn and get educated, and I kind of have a pile of books on
Yeah.
various things out in front of me,
Right.
it settles me down. And I'm like, oh, that was why. You weren't just angry or ranting for ranting's sake. It was because you felt underwater. I felt underwater on a
Yeah.
certain answer I felt I needed to know and didn't know. And so
Right.
then there's kind of power in an action that I can then take to respond to that, and
Yeah.
it's been working faster. So
Yeah,
that's such an
but you were able to like stop those thoughts and emotions, right? And say, "Well, hold on, let me like get a bit of clarity here, provide that space between, that stimulus and response and say like, well, how have I gotten through this or worked through this in the past? And it's through like educating yourself, right? The same for me. I mean, I'm just so enthralled in like learning about this, like kind of our, um, just how the brain works and how we can like change these neural pathways and just be better humans, So I pour myself into podcasts and YouTube, clips and all of that. And then all of a sudden I'm not as frustrated. I'm like, oh, okay. Like it's just uh hugely, but you first have to recognize the space that you're in, right?
right,
And so
right.
many times we just kind of keep plowing through or just like and move on and not even like take a minute to pause and say like, hold on, like how can I make that switch?
Right, right. Well, or you don't move on and you consider that little molehill to be a mountain and you just turn
Yeah.
back like, well, hey, it was a mountain in front of me. There's no way I could have traversed that. And that's even the bigger tragedy. Okay. So you told me about sort of that one side, being able to self-regulate and being aware. What's
Yeah.
the other side?
So it is figuring out what contemplative practices that are things that you do that fill you up or that help you get more grounded and just like at ease with things. So one of the things that I started doing right as we kind of went into COVID 3 years ago was yoga and just in my home, YouTube yoga, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. And it wasn't, and because I have, I have a hard time journaling and I would have a hard time getting into a practice of meditation because I'm just, it just wasn't for me. But yoga was my way of kind of meditating while still doing something because like I need to be kind of feeling like I'm, doing something. But it helped in I don't know, just from many aspects. But it really helped to like calm my thinking and just kind of get me grounded. Walking, going out. I live on, a couple acres here in the country and so lots of cornfields and, just quietness. So just being able to get out and go for a walk with my little dog, is a way to, now a lot of times I'll like be listening to something like a podcast that I really enjoy, but even more so, it's recommended to just not listen to anything and just like be really open to the surroundings and listening to whatever is out in nature.
Well, so
Um,
what does that do? Because, I know there are some viewers, some listeners that are going to say, and what does that get me? Like, what sort of
well,
keys does that, to what doors does that open? So just
yeah, I
share
was
with
talking with
us.
a client just this week that she was saying, like just Monday. Like I just was not productive. Like I was just not having a good day. And I just like chose to sit at my desk and just to continue to plow through and feel and still not be productive.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, again, did you have the awareness to like catch yourself? I don't know that she did in the moment until later. I said, what are the things like I know I felt that way. And I said, if I can pull myself away and just say, you know what, I'm going to take a 30-minute walk, or a 30-minute whatever, just to pull away, to get myself out of this like, and always, always, whenever I do that and can pull away and just go for a walk and come back, it's just more clear.
Hmm.
It's just that time to like put space. And for me, it without I mean, in just about every situation, it helps to just change things as far as the path that I was going down, which was maybe like a um even in cases where I'm working on the self-regulating side of things, if I can catch it and just get up from my desk, get out of this like zone environment that we're all in, if I can remove myself from the situation and go sit in a chair and just even do 3 minutes of breathing or something just to do a reset. I use this on my son, like he's in this, like, he's going down a path and you can see all of a sudden he's spiraling because like he's not getting something, like it's not clicking for him, whatever the homework assignment is. And he, all of a sudden it's just like you can see the hot emotion just coming up. I try and get him. I say, let's move. Let's go out on the porch. And sometimes I have to like pull him away and force him out the door. But I'm like, let's just move, and get out on the porch, look out to the horizon, change the conversation. I say like, let's go for a four-wheeler ride or, whatever. Let's just get out of this, take 15 minutes and then come back. It's enough to just to do that self-regulation and switch your brain. And then all of a sudden he looks at his homework and he's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
So you have to recognize it though first, and then
Right.
have that mental strength to say like, I can take, 2 minutes and, whatever,
Yes. And what I
whatever the
like,
practice is.
yeah. Yes. And what I like about your idea, that's my, that's a positive
The practice,
intelligence
yes.
tool there. Uh, And just like you said, and I think I walked on what you said as you said it was, whatever it is, I think in times past, I had listened to various advice givers, whoever that might be, whether it's personal, professional, whatever, that say, you know what you need to do? Everybody needs to play tennis. Everybody needs to do this
Yeah,
one thing, brushing with your opposite hand, spinning
yeah,
around 5 times in front of the mirror and giving yourself a pow,
right.
whatever it is, at the start of every day. It's like, whatever, which is my ritual, by the way. No, um, it whatever it is, as long as it is something that is grounding and
Yeah,
that helps, just like you had said, sort of grounds you and removes you from the anxiety of the moment or the pressure of the moment or the stuckness of the moment. I have some rituals I'm
it's
going
like,
through. I had some mantras I'm reading every morning,
yeah,
and I'm obviously doing some positive intelligence reps that I do throughout the day. Sometimes they're with an app, sometimes they're on my own as I'm driving or as
right.
getting a coffee, whatever it is. And sometimes I thought to myself, well, is this the perfect thing? And immediately I'm thinking, if it's working for me, yes,
Yeah,
other people hold your breath 90 seconds, pass out on the floor, find,
right,
like everyone for themselves.
right.
And I guess, my ability to float above, above the clouds, I'm not there yet. And maybe I have to introduce some other real sophisticated and,
Yeah,
existential exercise to get there. But at least as the human being that I am, what I'm at least trying to subscribe to is helping. And it goes to that
yeah,
funny conversation we've had about physical fitness, right? Some people
yeah,
say, I'm going to work out. I'm going to travel a half hour to the gym. I'm going to spend 7 hours a day at the gym. I'm going
yeah,
to train like a professional boxer. If I can't do that 7 hours a day, what's the point? It's like,
yeah. And it,
use
it
the
is,
stairs, try to do one or two things. You do that every single day for consistency's sake,
right.
and you will at least start at a regimen and start a neural pathway, by the way. That will
And
be
it's a couple things. First of all, like the last thing that you want to do is beat yourself up. So, it's like, oh, I said I was going to do this and I didn't do this. So you have to make it work for you. Whatever, grounds you and gives you that kind of clear mind is what works for you. And it changes for me throughout the year. In the summertime, I like to get out, on the country roads and go for a bike ride. And whenever I do that while listening to like, a podcast, I always come back like with like new insights. Um, in the winter time, that's when I might switch to doing strength training because it's like I don't go outside once it gets below like 60 degrees too cold. And I live in Illinois and it gets really cold here in the winter. So, there I might spend less time doing yoga in the summer because I'm out walking more. But like now I'm getting back into it. There are times that, again, I think in the wintertime, I like to cozy up with a blanket and maybe do some journaling, but I am not, it's almost more intermittent, when I'm like, I need to use this modality now. So, and what I've gotten better at is not beating myself up to be like, you signed up for that strength training for the whole year to go twice a week and you never went once in, the summertime. But I beat myself up, but then I caught myself and said, like,
You are
it's
confessing.
fine. It's fine. So, and I have one of the new things that I have been using the Calm app to do 10 minutes of meditation every morning. Um, that's a new, that's a new thing for me because it was really hard for me. But if you research it, everybody will say the benefits of meditation are like huge. Um, but it has to work for you, and so that's where just find what works for you, and if it's seasonal, let it be seasonal. Like what works now will then end up turning into something else later. And so, do you feel that way? Do you have kind of different things that you go to? And we're always growing and learning too. So like all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's the next thing that I'm going to try.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, certainly it's and that's the thing is I'm trying not to judge the journey I'm on because I know that
Yeah.
I'm on a choo-choo train as opposed to a locomotive, but I'm glad I'm on the train. This back to a Mr. Rogers analogy, so it's coming
Uh-huh.
full circle. So just as we close out this episode on feelings and emotions, final
Yeah.
thoughts.
It's the hard space and it's where the work is. I mean, it really is. So that's why it's like for any leader or organization that's like, that's not me, it can't not be you. Like it really can't because um, it's just our human nature. Like, and whatever we can do to help people get on that journey to like calm their thoughts, it's everything that helps you be a better human being, a better partner, a better parent, a stronger leader. I mean, it's emotions are everything, and how we can accept them and recognize them and label them in the right place so we can understand them more. It's like really understanding them more, and then regulating them in a way that works best for us.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thank you. I
This has been
enjoyed this thoroughly. I'm
me
all
too.
like warm emotions about this.
Good, good. Well, we will talk next time. Great talking to you as always. We'll see you
As
next time.
always, it's always fun. Thanks, Chris. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.